I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. A mentor is someone who teaches or advises a younger person with less experience. January was National Mentoring Month in the United States. This was a time for calling attention to the value of mentoring. Some mentoring programs connect adults with children who need guidance. Researchers say mentoring can reduce drug and alcohol use and violence among young people. In Southern California, a nonprofit group called School on Wheels has volunteers who tutor children from homeless families. Experts estimate that 1 in every 50 children in the country is homeless at some time during the year. They might live in shelters or weekly hotels or abandoned buildings or even on the streets, anywhere except a permanent home. Sinead Chilton is marketing consultant for School on Wheels. She says she was surprised to learn the extent of the problem when she moved to the United States from London 10 years ago. She said she heard about School on Wheels, but did not even consider the fact that there were homeless children in America. And then she was surprised when she realized that there were 1.6 million homeless children in America. Ms. Chilton has worked with School on Wheels for more than 6 years. She says she still remembers the first student she tutored. She met with her every week at a local church. The church provided shelter for people on winter nights. The girl slept on the floor. A retired teacher named Agnes Stevens started School on Wheels 8 years ago. She wanted to help homeless children stay in school. The group now has more than 1,000 volunteers. Each year, they tutor as many as 2,000 students. The group also provides services to other children, including backpacks and school supplies. Sinead Chilton says School on Wheels also helps parents to put their children in school and advises parents about the education system. The Harvard School of Public Health and the National Mentoring Project launched National Mentoring Month in 2002. Ms. Chilton says she hopes more people will volunteer to help children. She said it is important for people who want to make a difference in their community to look at where the needs are. And the most needy members of our community are homeless children. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. American colleges are facing many problems. College costs are rising, and there are not enough jobs for the people who have finished study programs. But employers say they cannot find enough workers with technical skills. Now, online classes might offer solutions. Many top universities offer online classes. Students can often take these classes at little or no cost. Lynda.com is one website with online classes. Linda Weinman helped to launch the website. She says that colleges cannot teach technical skills easily because these skills change quickly. But it is easy for websites with online classes to keep up with new technology. Online classes offer different ways to learn. At most colleges, a professor gives a lecture and the students research and study alone. Students who take online classes listen to lectures at home, but they work with their professor on projects and homework. Experts say the growing number of online classes will have a major effect on colleges. Some say college classes in the future may be a mix of online lectures and professors helping students in person. Georgetown University labor economist Tony Carnevale says he would welcome these changes. He says a college education must lead to skills that employers need. He also notes that the college system needs to become more efficient. Chris Cullen is a college marketing expert. He says competition from online schools and concerns about costs will change universities. He says top universities with strong public images may expand in an online world, but less famous schools may struggle to interest students. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. A study in Norway has found that students who stayed in school longer than others their age scored higher on intelligence tests. In the 1950s, the government began requiring students to attend school until the age of 16 instead of 14. Communities had almost 20 years to make the change. So some students went to school for 7 years, while others went for at least 9 years. This difference gave researchers the chance to see if the additional schooling had any effect on intellectual development. All young men in Norway must take a test of their cognitive ability at age 19 in preparation for required military service. This is commonly called an IQ or intelligence quotient test. University of Oslo researcher Taryn Ann Galloway says the young men who were basically forced to stay in school for 2 years longer actually did have higher IQs. So based on that, we were able to say that increasing compulsory schooling did actually have an effect on their cognitive abilities as measured at 19 years of age. An average IQ is 100. Most people score between 85 and 115. Ms. Galloway says students who attended school for 9 years scored 7 points higher than those who attended for 7 years. Those who went for 8 years scored about 4 points higher. The findings appear in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Experts have long debated the extent to which we are born with intelligence or develop it influenced by environment and education. Another recent study in the journal Nature found that IQ scores can rise or fall during the teenage years. In 2004, researchers from University College London tested 33 young people ages 12 to 16. The researchers repeated the tests 4 years later. They found increases or decreases of as much as 20 points. Brain scans showed that as IQ scores increased, so did the density of gray matter in some areas of the students' brains. Professor Kathy Price says the differences in performance could be the result of some teens being early or late developers. But she says it is equally possible that education played a part. She sees a lesson for educators. We have to be careful not to write off poorer performers at an early stage, when in fact their IQ may improve significantly given a few more years. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Earlier this year, we reported on the growth of massive open online courses, or MOOCs. These higher education courses are mostly free, and so far largely in technical areas like computer science. MOOCs are usually open to anyone and can have thousands of students around the world. Entrepreneurs and educators are studying the different business possibilities. One idea is to make money by offering credits or certificates to students willing to pay. Another is to charge employers for connecting them with students who get top scores on online tests. Some top universities are starting to offer their own MOOCs. For example, the University of California, Berkeley recently announced it has joined a nonprofit enterprise called edX. Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology started edX and have each invested $30 million. Berkeley will offer 2 of the 7 free courses on the edX platform: Artificial Intelligence and Software as a Service. Berkeley will also work with edX to get more universities involved. Schools that offer courses on the edX platform will be called X universities. MIT professor Arnott Agarwal is the president of edX, and he helped develop an electrical engineering course for the fall. He says the goal is to reinvent education worldwide and on campus. Berkeley Chancellor Robert Birgeneau made similar comments as he expressed a commitment to excellence in online education. He says the goals are to bring higher education to more people and to enrich the quality of campus-based education. And he added that he believes working with the not-for-profit model of edX is the best way to do that. edX faces for-profit competitors. One is Udacity, co-founded by Sebastian Thrun at Stanford University. Another is Coursera, started by 2 other Stanford computer scientists, Daphne Koller and Andrew Ng. In fact, some Berkeley professors have been teaching free courses through Coursera. Coursera started with 4 universities and in July announced a big expansion. One of the new partners is the University of Virginia. In June, its popular president, Teresa Sullivan, had to resign. The governing board forced her out, in part, over suggestions that she was not moving fast enough into this new world of online education. But 2 weeks later, after campus protests, the board rehired her. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. I'm Carolyn.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. For years, the Catholic Church in America has struggled to find new clergy. The average age of priests and nuns is 70 and rising. But some Catholic orders are having more success than others. The Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia are mainly a teaching order. They are based at a convent in Nashville, Tennessee. And they just celebrated their 150th year. The sisters are active across the United States and in Australia. There, they teach more than 13,000 students in 34 schools. Today, St. Cecilia's has its largest number of postulants in many years. A postulant is a candidate for admission into a religious order. Sister Catherine Marie, a spokeswoman, says the current group of first-year students represents 10% of the whole order. She said, "There are 270 of us, and our growth of late has been rather extensive. This year, we had 27 young women enter. Last year, it was 23. Nearly 1/3 of the women in the order are under 30. Sister Catherine says she thinks these young women are looking deeper into their faith in reaction to changes in society. Participation in organized religion is falling among Americans under age 30. That was the finding of a national survey last year by the Pew Research Center. A different group, the National Opinion Research Center, recently found that 17% of Americans do not identify with any faith. And another poll found that this was true of almost 25% of first-year university students. Sister Kelly Edmonds is a first-year postulant at St. Cecilia's. She says she came to the order out of a desire to serve others. She had seen Dominican sisters serving at the University of Sydney. Sister Victoria Marie is in her second year. She came to the convent with a degree in civil engineering. She says she had discovered that people were more interesting to her than roads or bridges. A postulant's day includes work, study, and prayer. Sister Victoria says it requires a lot of energy. But Sister Kelly says she was surprised by how much time she has gotten to simply enjoy life. She said, "There have been a lot of fun moments just to be outside and enjoy the beauty of the world and creation." For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can get transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our shows at voaspecialenglish.com. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. 25-year-old Rick Aguilar says he discovered early in life that music is magic. He says, "Music made me feel like anything was possible." At the age of 7, a medical condition required him to have a brain operation. It also prevented him from playing sports. So his mother suggested that he learn to play drums instead. He says, "I started playing drums with Ronit Glick. She was my elementary teacher. I remember just the joy it brought to me. It was my favorite thing. 6th grade was a new school, and I had a hard time getting along with all the kids. And Ms. Glick just took me in, and I had so much fun at the program. It just felt great all the time. Rick Aguilar graduated from the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts in 2007. While there, he volunteered as a music teacher at a youth center in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston. He helped create a small music club within the center. The music clubhouse at the Blue Hill Boys and Girls Club quickly grew. Young people come to the music clubhouse after school and during summer vacation. The club provides a safe environment to learn to play instruments and to perform together in bands. The club even has its own recording studio. The club has released 2 albums. The second album is called Because of You. 14-year-old Javon Martin performs under the name Young Fresh. He joined the music clubhouse 3 years ago. He says he never thought he would be doing this, but now he gives shows and his music is on the radio. People are starting to see him as an artist. 10-year-old Akila Hunter joined the club last year but did not play an instrument. Now she plays piano and sings in a band. What she likes best, she says, is performing. The music clubhouse opened 3 years ago and has served almost 500 young people. Rick Aguilar says preparing and performing is good for them. He says it gives them confidence and is also an escape from problems in their lives. They can write songs and rap about their problems. Rick Aguilar says he is happy but not surprised by the results of the music clubhouse at the Blue Hill Boys and Girls Club. He says as much fun as he has performing, it's even more fun to watch these kids grow up and develop. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Zaytuna College is a new 4-year college in Berkeley, California. Zaytuna is seeking to become the first accredited Muslim college in the United States. The name comes from the Arabic word for olives. The process of full accreditation could take several years. That will make it easier for students to get financial aid and to have their education recognized by employers and other schools. Zaytuna held its first classes this summer, intensive study of Arabic to prepare for classes in the fall. Men and women sat on opposite sides of the auditorium. Most of the men had beards and wore skull caps. Most of the women covered their hair with scarves. Zaytuna currently offers 2 majors, a choice of Islamic law and religion or Arabic language. General education classes include American history, anthropology, philosophy, literature, and political science. Imam Zaid Shakir is a professor and co-founder of Zaytuna. He was born in Berkeley. The college website says he accepted Islam in 1977 while serving in the United States Air Force. Imam Shakir says he wants teachers who are trained and educated in the United States and who understand American society. There are millions of American Muslims, but the Imam says most of the teachers of Islam in America received their training in other countries. He says Islam has never become rooted in any land until that land had its own Islamic scholars. Michael Higgins studies the relationship between religion and higher education. The United States has many different religious colleges, but he says he fears there could be protests if Zaytuna College is seen as teaching students not to accept other religions. This September 11th will be 9 years since the Al-Qaeda terrorist attacks on the United States. Imam Shakir recognizes that those attacks and other plots since then have fed public suspicions about Islam. But he says opponents of the college represent a minority opinion in the United States. He says they are reacting to a small group of extremists, a lunatic fringe in the Islamic community. He said, and I think this is why Zaytuna College is so important. If we prove ourselves, even those more vocal critics will be silenced. It's up to us. The ball is in our court. And that's the VOA Special English Education
This
Report.
is the VOA Special English Education Report. Americans have never had national education standards. Goals for what public schools should teach are set by state and local school boards. Their members are often elected. But some Americans say the lack of national standards is wrong in a competitive global economy. Former President Bill Clinton said it was as if somehow school boards could legislate differences in algebra or math or reading. President George W. Bush and Congress expanded federal intervention. His education law, still in effect, required states to show yearly progress in student learning as measured by the state's own tests. Now, the Obama administration supports what are known as the Common Core State Standards. These were developed in a year-long process led by state governors and chief state school officers. Texas and Alaska were the only states not to take part. The standards are in two subject areas: English language arts and mathematics. They establish goals for each year from kindergarten through grade 12. The aim is for students to finish high school fully prepared for college and careers. The developers considered standards in other countries, along with almost 100,000 public comments. One way the Education Department is trying to persuade states is with money. States are competing to share in almost $3.5 billion as part of a school reform competition. They earned extra points in the race to the top if they approved the standards by August 2nd. States are trying to recover from the recession. There are concerns that some could accept the standards and then lack the money to follow them. The final standards were released June 2nd. A report in July said about half the states had approved them. The Thomas B. Fordham Institute is an education group in Washington. It says the standards are clearer and stronger than those used in 3/4 of the states. But the comparison also found that existing English standards are clearly stronger in California, Indiana, and the District of Columbia. States that approve the new standards have a right to add up to 15% of their own. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and archives of our reports are at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Millions of students have been taught a formula that has nothing to do with chemistry. The formula is for how to write a 5-paragraph essay. First, write an introductory paragraph to state the argument. Then, add 3 paragraphs of evidence. Finally, write a conclusion. Linda Bergman is director of the Writing Lab at Purdue University in Indiana. Her job is to help students, including international students, improve their writing. Professor Bergman has worked with many students who learned this traditional 5-paragraph formula. She says international students sometimes have difficulty with this formula if they learned a different writing structure. But just knowing how to write a 5-paragraph essay is not going to be enough for a college student who has to write a longer academic paper. As Professor Bergman points out, the formula is too simple to deal with subjects that require deeper thought and investigation. In her words, essentially, it is way too simplistic to handle more intellectually sophisticated topics which involve actual inquiry. Karen Goshik is Executive Director of Courses in the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. The Institute has an extensive library of online writing materials on its website. So, what are the qualities that make up good writing? Ms. Goshik says there are no simple answers except maybe for one. That is, there is no formula that students can follow to guarantee a well-written paper. She says, what we try to teach students to do in college is to listen to their ideas, and that the idea should be able to tell you what form it needs to take. She says moving from secondary school writing to college-level writing can be difficult, but students should not be afraid. American college students are usually expected to state their thesis at the beginning of a paper. In some cultures, students organize their paragraphs to build toward the main idea at the end. And while students in some cultures use lots of descriptive words, American professors generally want shorter sentences. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Tell us about your own experience with academic writing. Go to voaspecialenglish.com and share your stories. And before you write that next paper, check out 2 links on our website. One is for the online writing lab at Purdue. The other is for the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric at Dartmouth.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Many colleges and universities in the United States have writing centers to help students improve their skills. Some materials are available free at websites like the Purdue Online Writing Lab or OWL. The site is connected to the Writing Lab at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. It includes resources that can help non-native English speakers. VOA's Art Chimes recently spoke with the director, Linda Bergman. She said the Purdue Online Writing Lab is a collection of workshops, worksheets, and instructional materials. For example, even native speakers are often not sure when to use lie and when to use lay. The site gives these example sentences. After laying down his weapon, the soldier lay down to sleep. Will you lay out my clothes while I lie down to rest? The problem is that lie also means to not tell the truth, as in, I lied to my mother. So you would say in the past tense, I lay on the bed because I was tired. The Purdue Online Writing Lab also explains how to use an apostrophe correctly in possessives and other cases. People often add an apostrophe to its in a sentence like, the group made its decision. There should be no apostrophe because what you mean is that the decision belongs to the group. Its with an apostrophe is short for it is, as in, it's raining. The Purdue Online Writing Lab also explains how to organize papers and avoid plagiarizing other people's work. And it provides a guide to higher education in the United States, including explanations of commonly used terms. Director Linda Bergman says the goal is to provide as many tools as possible. They include basic language skills of agreement of subject and verb, use of commas and other punctuation, and complete and incomplete sentences. The website was started in 1994 and has plenty of fans. Linda Bergman says, we get a lot of thank you notes from people around the world. And also some schools in other countries use it as a writing handbook, as do some schools in the United States. In all, the Purdue Online Writing Lab offers over 200 free resources for writing and research. The address is owl.english.purdue.edu. For a link and to learn more about higher education in America, go to our website, voaspecialenglish.com. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. China will have a record number of graduates moving into the job market this summer. 7 million people will finish their studies and begin building a career. But China's economy is slowing down. Chances for jobs for many new graduates are not good. To make things harder for current job seekers, more than 200,000 who graduated last year are still looking for jobs. Hu Jingdou, an economist at the Beijing Institute of Technology, said only 30% of graduates can be employed immediately. The economist said the majority of students remain unemployed and looking for work. And it is not just the number of graduates that is making the job search difficult. After years of strong growth, China's economy is slowing. Chinese leaders say they are struggling to keep growth about 7%. But Hu Jingdao says a big problem is the structure of Chinese industry. He says there are many places in China where graduate students are needed, but are not willing to go. Recently, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang called on companies to give more opportunities to new graduates. In response, some privately run enterprises have announced increases in their hiring of new graduates. Observers say the government could go even further by giving private companies tax incentives and funding to help make them more equal to state-owned enterprises. They also say the government could encourage new graduates to work in smaller cities away from China's coastal area by giving them payments or other benefits. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. More than 100,000 international students will spend this summer working and traveling in the United States. They are participating in the Summer Work Travel Program through the State Department. They receive J-1 exchange visitor visas. The idea is for students to work for up to 3 months and earn enough money to then spend a month traveling before they return home. The Summer Work Travel Program has existed for years. This year, there are some changes. The State Department recently amended the employment rules. These changes follow a strike last summer by foreign students working at a distribution center for Hershey's chocolates. The State Department said the students were put to work for long hours in jobs that provided little or no contact with the outside world. The students complained about having to lift heavy boxes and to work overnight. They and other workers protested conditions at the plant in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. The students also complained about being underpaid as a result of deductions from their earnings. Some of their pay had to go to subcontractors involved in the operations. The State Department has now banned the use of summer work travel students in warehouses or packaging plants. Also, the majority of their work hours cannot fall between 10 at night and 6 in the morning. The students are also barred from jobs in workplaces that the Federal Labor Department says are unsafe. More jobs will be banned in the fall. These include most construction, manufacturing, and food processing jobs. Summer work travel students will also not be allowed to work in most mining and agricultural jobs. Daniel Costa at the Economic Policy Institute in Washington welcomed the new limits on jobs that the students can fill. He says the change will protect foreign workers from getting injured on the job. It also protects U.S. workers, he says, because of high unemployment in many of those jobs. He also praised a requirement that employers only fill temporary or seasonal jobs with summer work travel students. Some employers have continually hired new student workers to avoid having to hire regular full-time employees. Jacob Horwitz is lead organizer for the National Guest Worker Alliance, the group that organized the strike in Palmyra. He says the State Department's changes will help return the program to its original purpose as a cultural exchange program. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Claremont Lincoln University, near Los Angeles, is a new graduate school for religious education. It hopes to change the way religious leaders in the United States are educated. The school will train Muslim, Jewish, and Christian clergy together. It offers master's degree programs in interreligious studies and Muslim leadership. Administrators think that this is the first interreligious university of its kind. 3 institutions founded Claremont Lincoln. One is the Claremont School of Theology, where the university is located. The other founders are the Academy for Jewish Religion, California, and the Islamic Center of Southern California. Students from one institution may take courses at the others. The Islamic school is just beginning its programs. The founders hope to begin training imams sometime next year. David Lincoln is chairman of the board of Claremont Lincoln. He and his wife Joan donated $50 million to the university. He says, in a lot of places now, religions fight each other. And if the religions could encourage solutions to the problems, then the problems would be solved, and we'd all be better off. Reverend Jerry Campbell, president of the Claremont School of Theology, says teaching religion this way will strengthen society. If we can't love our neighbors who are not like us, if we can't love them being who they are, how can our country hang together? Jihad Turk is Director of Religious Affairs for the Islamic Center of Southern California. He says this way of educating religious leaders will show that in the United States, there is great support from private institutions, from the public at large, and by the government as well, that recognizes that Islam and Muslims are on the side of peace. Ibrahim Rasool, South Africa's ambassador to the United States, spoke at the university. He says interfaith cooperation is a way to balance extremism. Anyone can step into the breach and claim to be speaking for God. And unless the middle ground is able to establish what is God's purpose, we will cede more and more ground to the fundamentalists. Reverend Campbell says he hopes to bring more religions to Claremont Lincoln, including the Baha'i faith. An international school of Gen Studies will offer short-term exchange programs and seminars on Jainism, a religion from India. Reverend Campbell says the goal is to unite people, to promote religion as a source of healing, compassion, and peace. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Today, we talk more about the costs of higher education in the United States. If you missed last week's report, you can find it on YouTube or at voaspecialenglish.com. Foreign students who need financial aid generally have to seek it from the school itself or their own government or employer. If you follow the news, then you know that President Obama recently signed healthcare reform legislation. But one of the two bills he signed into law also made unrelated changes in the federal student loan program. These changes will require new loans to come directly from the Department of Education. The department already makes these federally guaranteed loans for American citizens and permanent legal residents. But since the early 1990s, it has also paid private lenders to provide them. Now, as of July 1st, all new loans will go through the direct loan program only. Officials say the new law will save the government $61 billion over 10 years. The plan is to use more than half the savings to provide more federal Pell Grants to needy students. A few billion will also go to schools that traditionally serve minorities and to help two-year community colleges. The new law will reduce the most that borrowers must repay each year from 15% of their income to 10%. And the longest repayment period will be shortened from 25 years. Any remaining debt will be forgiven after 20 years or 10 if borrowers enter public service. Supporters in higher education said the final bill did not go far enough. Republican opponents called it an unnecessary government takeover of a private industry. Another criticism was that the financial services industry could lose about 30,000 jobs. The Department of Education reported last year that about 2/3 of graduates from four-year colleges had student loan debt. The average was about $23,000. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. You can discuss education and other subjects on our Facebook page at VOA Learning English. You can also find transcripts and podcasts of our radio programs at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. More than 100 teenage musicians recently attended a summer camp in Los Angeles to learn about the music business. Some of the advice they received came from the youngest member of the Jonas Brothers, 18-year-old Nick. Nick Jonas appeared in Broadway musicals before he became a pop star with his brothers. He told the students at the Grammy camp that social media was incredibly important at the beginning of the brothers' career and still is today. With Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, there are so many instant ways to connect with your fans. Other music professionals also shared their knowledge at the week-long camp. The annual event is part of Grammy in the Schools, a project from the organizers of the music industry's Grammy Awards. The camp gives students a chance to perform or to learn music production skills. Ben Lopiccolo worked on his skills as a music reporter. He found that he really enjoyed writing and telling people about music to expand their tastes. These teens hope to be part of an industry that is going through big changes. Kristen Madsen at the Grammy Foundation points to the influence of social networking on sites like Facebook and Twitter. There are new ways and new roadmaps for kids to succeed in the music industry, and they have a lot more access to doing it themselves. 13-year-old Grayson Chance is about to release his first album. He told the other young musicians that his career began with a music video on YouTube. Giovanni Quattrocchi hopes for a career as a music producer. "I'm excited to see where music is going to go," he says. For example, he likes the way, especially with hip-hop, there's a lot of sampling of different genres of music. Music is also becoming more international, says Elise Go, who hopes to be a songwriter. She points to American influences in Korean and Chinese pop music. She says, "That's very cool to hear. A pop song you think you'd hear on the radio in America in another language." Brian London plays keyboards for Lady Gaga and other artists. He told the students that succeeding in music is about hard work, not just talent. Being a great player, everybody's a great player, so a lot of artists, management labels, and music directors look at more than just being a great player in order to be hired for a gig. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can watch a video about the Grammy Camp at VOA Special English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. What American students are expected to learn has long been different from state to state. We talked last time about the tradition of local control of schools. To some people, the lack of national academic standards is an important limit on federal powers. But others say all it does is limit American competitiveness in a world that is becoming more educated. Now, state governors and chief school officers are leading a movement toward what are known as the Common Core State Standards. These list content in math and English language arts that students are expected to learn each year from kindergarten to high school. In the past year, most of the 50 states have adopted these standards. That speed is partly explained by President Obama's Race to the Top competition. Accepting the standards helped states that competed last year for federal money for school reform efforts. Patrick Murray has been an elected member of the school governing board in Bradford, Maine for 4 years. The public school system is small, just 1,200 students from 5 towns. In April, Maine became the 42nd state to approve the Common Core standards. Mr. Murray says he does not trust supporters of these standards. They say this is a state-led effort, but he thinks the goal is national control of education. He says many states have adopted the Common Core standards only because they were offered federal money. My opinion is when you have federal mandates and federal money involved, it's no longer state-led. Mr. Murray says national academic standards would violate the United States Constitution. He believes the federal government should have no role in education. None. Patience Blythe disagrees. Ms. Blythe has taught for 5 years. She recently moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Before that, she was a science teacher in Texas, one of the few states not to adopt the Common Core standards. Ms. Blythe says national standards could improve the results of American students on international science tests. She says, not everything has to be a state issue. There could be a benefit from some more federal involvement in our education system, that we could address a lot of the inequalities that we have. She also disagrees with those who say the standards could limit the ability of teachers to be creative. The reality is, the standards give you keys and tools to understand what the objectives are. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report in Special English. The number of students from China studying at universities across the United States continues to increase. Some estimates say the number of undergraduate students from China in the United States has doubled in the last 2 years. Economists say the trend is largely caused by a growing middle class in China. Los Angeles County has one of the largest Chinese student populations in America, about 4,000 students. At the University of Southern California, students from China gather regularly for social events. One of the students says he has not met many Americans because there are so many students from China. He says this meant adjusting to life in the United States was easier. One international economist told VOA that Chinese students added more than $100 million to the economy of Los Angeles last year. He adds that across the country, Chinese students spend more than $4.5 billion every year. Economists say China's economic growth is behind the big increase in Chinese young people studying in the United States. One economist said that Chinese business leaders are now richer and can afford to send their children to study in America. In the past, Chinese students received scholarships to study in America. Today, many students, or at least their parents, pay their own expenses. And that is not the only change. The Dean of Religious Life at USC says Chinese students traditionally majored in engineering or science. Now, they are beginning to choose fields like business, education, or film. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. The number of international students at colleges and universities in the United States has increased for the 5th year. The Institute of International Education in New York released its annual Open Doors report in November. The report says a record high of more than 720,000 students from other countries studied in America during the last academic year. The number was 5% higher than the year before, and almost 1/3 higher than 10 years ago. There were big increases from China, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam, Iran, and Venezuela. Almost 22% of international students were Chinese, with increases especially at the undergraduate level. Together, almost half of all international students came from China, India, and South Korea. Peggy Blumenthal at the Institute says Chinese students are now studying throughout the United States. 10 years ago, she says, students from China knew about only a small number of universities in the United States. But now, they are being admitted to community colleges, liberal arts schools, and research universities across the country. Ms. Blumenthal suggests one reason for the increase is a lack of space in Chinese colleges for everyone who wants an education. She says students and their parents are also looking for a different educational experience. More international students study in California than any other state, followed by New York, Texas, Massachusetts, and Illinois. For the 10th year in a row, the University of Southern California in Los Angeles led the country, with more than 8,600 foreign students. The most popular area of study for international students is business and management, followed by engineering. Some schools are making special efforts to welcome students from other cultures. Workers greet students in different languages at a dining hall that the University of California, Los Angeles spent $5 million to modernize. Peter Angelis is an assistant vice chancellor at UCLA. He says 40% of the students are Asian, and opinion surveys showed that students wanted more Asian foods. The Open Doors report says about 45% of international students in the United States are women. Almost 2/3 of all foreign students receive the majority of their funding from personal and family sources. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. A new report says the number of foreign students in the United States reached a record high in 2008. More than 670,000 international students attended an American college or university in 2008. That was 8% higher than the year before, the largest percentage increase since 1980. The Open Doors report is published by the Institute of International Education with support from the State Department. It says the number of international students in 2008 was almost 15% higher than the last record-setting year, 2002. In all, 7 of the 10 top countries sent more students, just as the economic downturn was worsening. For the 8th year, India remained the leader in sending students to the United States. More than 100,000 students from India attended American schools in 2008. That was 9% more than the year before. China again sent the second largest number, more than 98,000, an increase of 21%. The biggest increases were in Chinese undergraduate students. South Korea was third. The number of South Korean students increased 9% to 75,000. Canada was the only non-Asian country in the top 5. It rose 2% to 4th place. Almost 30,000 Canadian students enrolled for the school year that began in autumn of 2008. Japan fell to 5th place. The number of Japanese students in the United States decreased for the 4th year to just over 29,000. Taiwan also sent fewer students, and the number from Mexico was nearly unchanged. The University of Southern California in Los Angeles once again had the highest number of foreign students. The Open Doors report says nearly 7,500 attended USC. New York University and Columbia University, both in New York City, were second and third. The other schools in the top 5 were the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. Business and management was again the most popular area of study for international students. The next most popular subjects are engineering, math, and computer science. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. You can find our Foreign Student Series with advice on studying in the United States at voaspecialenglish.com.
I'm Carolyn Presutti with the VOA Special English Education Report. The Intel Science Talent Search is the top science competition for high school students in the United States. The 40 finalists were honored in Washington in March. They met with scientists and politicians. President Obama welcomed them to the White House. These 40 students were selected from almost 2,000 contestants nationwide. They had to present original research to be judged by professional scientists. The students showed their research projects on large posters. The winners were announced March 15th. Wendy Hawkins is Executive Director of the Intel Foundation. She says the 40 finalists represented excellence across many areas of science. Their projects are deep and rich and insightful. Selena Lee is from Fair Oaks, California. She wanted to find a more effective treatment for liver cancer. She began her research 4 years ago. A scientist at the University of California, Davis, taught her how to design and do experimental work in the laboratory. She says, "I researched a new approach to targeting liver cancer by basically starving the liver cancer cells to death, while leaving the normal cells unaffected. And to go one step further, I blocked a survival pathway to make the treatment more effective." Ms. Lee placed 5th in the Intel Science Talent Search and was awarded $30,000. Scott Boisvert lives near Phoenix, Arizona. He began using a laboratory at the University of Arizona at the age of 14. Over 4 years, he completed a project studying a fungus linked to the decrease in amphibians around the world. He was trying to find out if different chemicals and substances in the water could kill the fungus. He collected and tested water samples across Arizona. He says, "My results were able to identify a list of chemicals that were significant in the growth and in the movement of the fungus." He placed 10th in the Intel competition and was awarded $20,000. Evan O'Dorney of Danville, California, won the top award of $100,000 in this year's Intel Science Talent Search. For his mathematical project, he compared 2 ways to estimate the square root of an integer, a number with no fractional parts. Wendy Hawkins at the Intel Foundation says these young people represent the next generation of scientists who will help shape America's future. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.